What do science and philosophy say about the meaning of life? This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. I came to the conclusion that there is no purpose to life, so now I do not know how to continue my life. Let us begin with a bit of the old broad brushstrokes. Let us view the meaning of life through two lenses, science and philosophy. Let's begin by viewing the meaning of life through the lens of neuroscience. This is an artist's depiction of a cross-section of the human brain. Good evening, Kind Harris and Kind Harris. Kind Kevin. Oy vey. So, Kind Kevin and Jay, thank you so much for your presence and your generosity. Kind Harris. Where the hell did I get Harris from? So, back to it. This, my friend, is an artist's depiction of a cross-section of the human brain. This is the front of the head. This is the back of the head. When we live from our amygdala, located at the bottom of our limbic system, in the veritable basement or dungeon of our brain, our lives are marked, defined, if you will, with anxiety and aggression. Not satisfying. When our lives are defined exclusively by our prefrontal cortex, forever thinking and overthinking and then overthinking again, we can exhaust ourselves and present with the symptoms of depression. However, if we journey just a few centimeters back, and we come to the anterior cingulate gyrus. Kind of looks like a catcher's mitt if you squint your eyes. Then our lives are defined by empathy and compassion and love. And in response to this, the bottom of our brain generates the experience of fulfillment. Let's now consider the meaning of life through the lens of philosophy. Arguably, one of humanity's oldest existing philosophical treatise is the Tao Te Ching. It is based more on the observations of humanity than it is really based on philosophy. So it should come as a little surprise that there are echoes of the conclusion of the Tao Te Ching found in many cultures around the world, even those that gave birth to Buddhism. Let us take a deeper look. Please consider this gal, the color of a cumulus cloud. Observe how she appears to actively sport in tantric union. This reminds us that contrivance is always trumped by spontaneity. Look again and notice her partner, the color of the azure sky. Notice how he appears to be passively savoring the same tantric union, reminding us that there are more than one flavor of spontaneity. Also reminding us that the scattered spontaneity we might sample after our third consecutive espresso will always be trumped by the centered spontaneity that is the natural byproduct of a regular practice of mindfulness and meditation. let us take a deeper look. It is a mistake to confuse mindfulness with concentration, just as it is a mistake to confuse meditation with contemplation, especially active contemplation. Allow me to show you why. When we rely upon our medial prefrontal cortex to actively concentrate, and when we rely upon our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex to actively contemplate, as we have inferred previously, our blood begins to coalesce at our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression and all around yuckiness. Now for some good news. When instead of relying upon our medial prefrontal cortex, instead we rely upon the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the ribcage region of our spinal cord. We do not concentrate. We do not mind blank. What then do? We notice. We notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. We notice sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. We notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. What do we do with all that stuff that we notice? Glad you asked. Because when we choose not to rely upon our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex to actively contemplate, but instead rely upon our parasympathetic nervous system to meditate. Our parasympathetic nervous system ensconced within both the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord, as well as the tippy top of the cervical region, sometimes described as, oopsie, here it is, the brainstem. Then that same parasympathetic nervous system supports both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Do that for at least 5 minutes every 12 hours or so, and you will notice something. You will notice that more and more and more your choices and your utterances and your deeds will flow from the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. When our lives are thus defined, more and more it can feel as if it was as blissful as the real or imagined paradise or pure land or vati of a Buddha of yore. Ask your dog what the meaning of life is, and they will tell you love and spontaneity. Ask your cat what the meaning of life is, and your Royal Majesty will inform you that your greatest fulfillment will come from serving your feline overlords. I do look forward to practicing with you together as a team after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. We're going to play with a very simple practice. let's begin with by bringing the four bases of mindfulness: the circumstantial, the physical, the interpersonal, and the mental. Let's bring these four bases of mindfulness into the path of loving kindness. Please chant with me. Since we are not alone in our mental frustrations, we could also long that others' mental needs also be met. As we breathe in, please silently and mentally recite wise. As we exhale, please silently and mentally recite all. And so all that we're doing is silently, mentally, and passively wishing that all beings everywhere be lavished with great wisdom. And it's like we are ladling out lentil soup to a lunch guest. It's not our job to practice concentration or visualization or profound love or impassioned emotion. If all we do is silently, mentally, and passively recite these words in harmony with our breathing, you will find that you are strengthening the neural pathways responsible for love. Now, what I'd like to do right now is practice this for 4 rounds, assuming that a round is simply one inhalation followed by one exhalation. I'd like to count these 4 rounds upon my left little finger. And I'd like to advance the tip of my right thumb during each inhalation. I invite you to do likewise. During the preceding next 4 breaths, the tip of the thumb will come to rest first upon the first set of creases, and then the second set of creases, and then the third set of creases, and then the tip. And this exercise will be replicated during the next 3 exercises as well. So together as a team, let us silently and mentally wish wise all. Please chant with me. Since we are not alone in our interpersonal frustrations, we could also long that others' interpersonal needs also be met. Together. Since we are not alone in our physical frustrations, we could also long that others' physical needs also be met. Oopsie. Since we are not alone in our circumstantial frustrations, we could also long that other circumstantial needs also be met. We can use the word boon as a monosyllabic synonym for circumstantial good fortune. Recognizing that the fundamental duality of Buddhism is the pushing and pulling of dread and desire. We can now bring the four bases of mindfulness into the path of impermanence. Please chant with me. Observing the coming and going of circumstantial phenomena, help us to see that ever-changing man and all there is nothing to grasp. Latsir is a monosyllabic synonym for circumstance. Meltir is simply a metaphor of impermanence. And notice that the most ergonomically sound location to rest our hands is our lap, instead of flapping them in front of the camera like I just did. Together. Observing the coming and going of physical phenomena, help us to see that ever-changing one and all there is nothing permanent to grasp. Forms is a one-syllable synonym for bodies. Together. Observing the coming and going of interpersonal phenomena, help us to see that ever-changing one and all there is nothing permanent to grasp. And I'd like to provide for you an anecdote. There are two memorable moments in any romantic relationship when your sweetheart looks at you as if they are thinking that you could do no wrong. And the other memorable moment, sometimes weeks or months or years later, is when that same person looks at you and they look like they're thinking that you could do no right. Together. Observing the coming and going of mental phenomena. So what would mental phenomena be? Simple. Perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Some pleasurable, others painful, some interesting, others boring, some glorious, and others grotesque. Others that can frighten Edgar Allan Poe. Observing the coming and going of mental phenomena, help us to see that ever-changing when on all there is nothing permanent to grasp. Now let us bring whatever we spontaneously notice into the path of awareness and letting go. As we inhale while silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this, we can kick back and watch the antics of mind as it perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. During our exhalation, as silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb ease, we could relax into mind's non-graspable nature. Now, before we begin with this, allow me to remind you that we've been playing at counting 16 rounds upon our left hand, and that works splendidly. Upon our right hand, we can count sets. Our first set of 16 rounds. Our second set of 16 rounds, which we just completed. Now we stand upon the precipice of this evening's third set of 16 rounds. Welcome to this evening's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, please type your question in great detail in the chat window. Now, it only works well if you remember then to click the send icon, which looks like a teeny tiny folded miniature airplane. There is a myth that this type of meditation was not taught by the Buddha, and that it actually migrated into the Theravadan from the Chinese. However, in the most ancient Theravadan texts, this style of meditation is outlined in a set of instructions known as the Seven Enlightenment Factors. The fourth of which is joy, which I love because it's the screaming indictment against being an uptight, sanctimonious bastard. Pardon me. The noble and kind Kevin Hayes asks, why is Mahayana known as the greater vehicle? In a word, marketing. Remember, the path of Yang, the path of Devadatta, the path of the cranky motherfucker is to be rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. What could be more elitist than to name whatever you do the highest and greatest? Ugh. That is exactly what they did, and you can hear the Buddha face palming. I can you? So, it's just that. As centuries came and went after the death of the Buddha, like a child game of post office, where a message is whispered in the ear of one child who whispers the same message into the ear of the second child, and by the time it comes out of the mouth of the 30th child, it's a completely different message. Which is why, just because a text claims to be a few hundred years old, is no guarantee of accuracy. The only thing that matters with a text are the results we get when we apply its instructions. Now, this is really just like rat poison. If you were rigid and fearful and controlling and lazy but if you're flexible and loving and laid back, this is like ambrosia. This is like honey on toast. Honey on butter toast. Oh, that's even better. It's not vegan, but it's delicious. If memory serves correct. It's been a long time. So, in Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare wrote, "A rose by any other name would still smell as sweet," but I'm not sure. Because I think if we call teachings Buddha's teachings, that sounds pretty good. But if we call the exact same teachings Satan's armpit, I don't think it'll have the same effect. I think it'll be a trifle more repugnant. Maybe that's just me. We should have Rue weigh in on this. Rue, the kitty cat of mystery and caginess. Or is that Teddy? Which one is cagey and which one is groovy? So Rue is cagey and Teddy is cuddly? Good to know. Well, you know, Kevin, a few people know that Jay is actually catnip on two legs. Theravada could translate literally as Path of the Elders. And it's the same thing, it's marketing. Why should you believe it? Because this guy said it's true. Well, why should I believe that guy? Because he's an old motherfucker. Just because someone's old doesn't mean they're smart or dull. It just means they're old. I'm not sure who it was. Perhaps it was Samuel Clemens, known as Mark Twain, who said there's a difference, and I paraphrase horribly. There's a difference between 10 years of experience and 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. How much worse? 1 day's experience repeated 3,000 times. So, I've met people who are called Mahateras, people who've been monks for 20 years. So what? How do their lives compare to the 7 enlightenment factors? Are they tranquil? Are they joyful? How do their lives compare to the Eightfold Path? Are they loving? Are they kind? Are they wise? An elitist who is hell-bent on dominating others will always have a list of reasons, some more fictitious than the others. A list of reasons why you should do whatever they say. During my political awakening that I experienced 15 years ago, I was horrified to hear a Republican candidate for president say, "In this campaign, there will be no fact-checking." What? Let us pretend there are two types of folks, or two extremes of the same spectrum. One extreme says truth is determined by authority. And the other extreme says, authority is determined by the truth. One says, because I told you. And the other says, well, because experimental data seems to demonstrate. I like the second better than the first. How about you? Sir J of Monaghan asks an important question. Are Theravadas strict? I've got a horribly dissatisfying answer for you. It depends. In every group of people, you can apply Sturgeon's law. There's going to be a whole bunch who are rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Some of those will be malicious. Most will just be lazy-minded. And you'll find a minority who are flexible, loving, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Regardless of whether they use Sanskrit or Pali or Chinese or Tibetan, regardless of how they tie their hair or shave their hair or wear their robes. There's always going to be a few who get it and a lot who don't. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish everyone was brilliant and loving. But I don't always get my way. How about you? I'll tell you a story. One time I was visiting a Laotian temple doing some healing work. And after a day of running energy on their sickest monks, they drove me home and I was exhausted. And they asked me what I was going to do for the rest of the evening. I said, well, I'm going to have some dinner and rest and go to bed. And they were aghast. A monk must not eat after noon. I said, yes, but how many exceptions to that rule did the Buddha offer? They could not answer that question. They did not want the answer to that question. They were rigid. They were so rigid that if they stumbled and fell and landed naked on a briquette, they would fart out a diamond. So, yeah, there's going to be a few wonderful people and a whole lot of poop heads. Jay asks, have you ever seen a Theravadan monastery that had a Mahayana monk with them? Well, when I was staying in a couple of Laotian monasteries, I was the, non-sectarian monk. I was the odd man out. Who was I have been kicked out of the finest monasteries of the land. But that's okay. Once I was asked to leave, I blasted Rage Against the Machine while I bowed to the Buddha. There is a member of Tibet's Yellow Hat sect known as the Gelag, who they consider themselves to be Mahayana, and he lived for a while with some Theravadan monks. If I recall correctly, his name is or was Lama Zazep. So what's funny is an elitist is elitist, regardless of whatever sect they attach themselves to. An elitist will say, you're wrong and must convert to my view of things, and then they'll look for evidence to support that claim. You know, well, you said refuge wrong, therefore you're not a Buddhist. Stuff like that. You say refuge that way, we say refuge this way, therefore you're wrong and we're right. What's next? My dog's bigger than your dog. Looking forward to hearing it. It's funny. There's a patriarchal impulse in young men to put their penis in other people. When they get older, they want to put their doctrine or their worldview in other people. They just want to put something in other people, whether it's a body part or a worldview. Why, even in non-religious settings, some men will withhold their love from their children in an attempt to coerce those children to strive to bond with their distant fathers, using their father's favorite pastime, be it hockey or football or baseball or working on the car or something like that. And sometimes it's effective, but it's still manipulation, and it's still the path of patriarchy. How very kind of you, Jay. So, you are welcome. But I got to tell you, what's most important to me is the happiness of my friends, you and Kevin. And I want you to be with whatever teacher gives you the most peace and gives you the most joy and is the most helpful to you. Now, selfishly, I like to hang out with you all the time. I think you guys are amazing. But if there's a better teacher out there for you, then be ruthless and do what's best for your spiritual development. The world needs you to be Optimus Prime, to be the best you that you can be, the wisest you and the most loving you that you can be, so that you can go around and help other people to be the best versions of them they can be. And so by all means, if there's a teacher out there who is better for you and you really feel helps you to take your next evolutionary steps, then I would be horrible if I did anything to prevent you from spending time with someone like that. Now, don't get me wrong, I would miss you. But there's a difference between sentimentality and love. Sentimentality says you're an object who exists to make me feel good. Love says, I want you to be happy. So I hope that makes sense. So what I'd like to do now is seal this evening's practice by percussively chanting loving wishes for universal enlightenment and well-being. May all minds clear yet impermanent be as enlightened as a Buddha's mind. May all experiences of the interpersonal resounding yet impermanent be as loving as a Buddha's speech. May all bodies sensual yet impermanent be as beautifully healthy as a real or imagined Deva's form. May all circumstances appearing yet impermanent be as safe and abundant as a real or imagined Devi's land. If you feel that I've earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to the tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always. And of course, Kevin, the next time we hang out, I would love to hear your thoughts on The Acolyte. I think that young actor, I think she's doing an amazing job.